Sutuvacha. Śrī Sūta Gosvāmī said, Parīkṣita, by Mahārāja Parīkṣit, evam, thus, adistuha, being ordered, sa, he, Kali, the personality of Kali, jata, there was, vepatu, trembling, tam, him, ujata, raised, asim, sword, aha, said, idam, thus, dandapanim, Yamarāja, the personality of death, Niva, like, udyatam, almost ready. Translation. Śrī Sūta Gosvāmī said, the personality of Kali, thus being ordered by Mahārāja Parīkṣit, began to tremble in fear, seeing the king before him like Yamarāja, ready to kill him. Kali spoke to the king as follows. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The king was ready to kill the personality of Kali at once, as soon as he disobeyed his order. Otherwise, the king had no objection to allowing him to prolong his life. The personality of Kali also, after attempting to get rid of the punishment in various ways, decided that he must surrender unto him, and thus he began to tremble in fear of his life. The king, or the executive head, must be so strong as to stand before the personality of Kali like the personality of death, Yamarāja. The king's order must be obeyed, otherwise the culprit's life is in risk. That is the way to rule the personalities of Kali, who create disturbance in the normal life of the state citizens. Translation again, I'll say, you please repeat. Śrī Sūta Gosvāmī said, the personality of Kali, thus being ordered by Mahārāja Parīkṣit, began to tremble in fear. Seeing the king before him, like Yamarāja, ready to kill him, Kali spoke to the king as follows. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshudumalitam Vina Tasmai Shri Gurve Namaha Shri Chaitanyamano Vishtam Stapitam Vina Bhutale Swayam Rupakaramayam Nadatiswa Parandigam. We were born in the darkness of ignorance, but our spiritual masters kindly forced to open our eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. Therefore we offer our most humble and respectful obeisances unto him. Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasad Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanumane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gaurvani Pachadane Nirvasesha Sunyavani Pashuddha Sutadane Yasi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sireta Gadadha Sivasuri Gaura Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Vancha Kalpatri Vishaki Vishunabhe Vacha Pratidharamayo Vaishnavibhyo Namo Namah. So, this verse is speaking about how Mahārāja Parīkṣit stood before the personality of Kali, and Kali seeing him as a serious representative of the Lord, he began to tremble in fear. Prabhupada explains that this material existence, 4 problems. Everyone is faced with these 4 problems of material existence. The eating problem, sleeping problem, the mating problem, and the fearing problem. And Prabhupada said out of these 4 problems, the most prevalent one, the one that gives us more trouble than all the others, is the fearing problem. Because we're always fearful, not knowing what is the next problem that we're going to have. And even the other 3 problems, they are saturated with fear. Eating problem. Will I have enough food? Will I eat too much food? Will I be able to digest what I eat? There's a fear, even just eating. Sleeping problem. Am I going to be kicked out of my apartment, my room, to have to move? Will I be able to afford to pay rent when the economy collapses? This is fear. Mating problem, so many problems. So much fear. People are mating out of season, so to speak. Am I going to get somebody pregnant? Am I going to catch a disease? Can I afford to have another child? This is all fear. So the fearing problem is all pervading. Why? Because this is the place of fear. This is Kuntaloka. This material world is called Kuntaloka. This is the planet of fear, the place of fear. As soon as we accept this material body, then we are placed in a fearful condition. As soon as we accept material existence, material identity, ahankara, then we have to accept the fear. Now, it's interesting here that certain types of fear are necessary and wanted, and other types of fear are unnecessary and unwanted. Okay? We're already fearful in this material world. And therefore, those who create unnecessary fear or increase the level of fear, those people are called terrorists. They have a program to increase fear. And these terrorists have been around since time immemorial. Hiranyakashipu, he was a terrorist. There's one chapter in Bhagavatam, 7th canto, right? Hiranyakashipu terrorizes the universe. He increased the fear of people. He was burning forests. He was harassing sages. He was killing cows. Everything. He was just causing a disturbance, demoniac propensity. And in Krishna Lila, so many demons were sent by Kamsa. Explained that when Kamsa sent one demon named Aristasura, he took the form of a gigantic bull that was so big that his back touched the sky. And when he was entering into Vrindavan on the banks of the Jamuna, he started digging up the earth with his hooves. And he was doing it with such force that all the residents of Vrindavan were trembling in fear. In fact, the ladies who were pregnant had miscarriages. And the whole Vrindavan area, the Brijabasis, they thought there was an earthquake going on. And when Krishna found out what was happening, he appeared before him. Said, "Oh, what are you doing? Why are you putting everybody in anxiety? You have something to do, you deal with me," right? And of course, Krishna took care of him, grabbing him by the horns and slapping him around like a wet rag, just finished him off. This is the business of the Lord and his representatives is to counteract fear with even greater fear, the fear of God. This is what Mahārāja Parīkṣit is representing to Kali, who's so powerful. His job, the Kshatriya's administrator's job, is to put the citizens at ease by, Prabhupada says here, they must be so strong must be so strong and standing before personality of God. He's like Yamarāja, like the death personified. That is real administration. Fearless. So there's that kind of fear, but then the administrator, a godly administrator, one of his services is to create fear in the hearts of those who are creating fear for the innocent people. And to do that, one must be fearless. One must know that they're standing on the order of the Lord. This is Mahārāja Parīkṣit, Rajarshi, saintly king. So there's that kind of fear, but then on another hand, so we know that devotees should be fearless because we know that we have Krishna. Just like Prabhupada said, a small child is fearless when he's with his parents, when they're with their parents. And when they're without parents, and a small child is always anxiety, But when the parents are there, do anything, go anywhere. So similarly, devotee becomes fearless when they know they're rightly situated in Krishna consciousness, with Krishna as their protector. But Prabhupada one time said, the problem with my disciples is that they do not have a healthy fear of Maya. So different types of fear are beneficial. Should be afraid of the cycle of birth and death. Samsara, we sing it every morning. Samsara dava lalita loka. It's explained that the material world is a cycle of birth and death, like a grinding wheel. If you're here, always think, okay, everything's all right. If you're on this grinding wheel, but when you get down to this point, you get ground up. But you think like a Ferris wheel, like it's ground at the end. So we have to be fearful of the material nature. We have to be fearful of the temptations of Maya. You should know Maya is very strong. It's probably my disciples don't have a healthy fear of Maya. That means we're thinking, we can still enjoy, and we still got Krishna. We still got Krishna to protect us, but that kind of attitude will not really protect us because it's an offense. To commit sinful activities on the strength of chanting the holy name of the Lord is one of the greatest offenses. So that's what Prabhupada was referring to. You're thinking, I'm going to enjoy sense gratification. At the same time, I'll protect myself by chanting. So, is fear necessary? Fear of God. Is the fear of God or the fear of the punishment of God necessary for becoming Krishna conscious? Prabhupada seems to indicate that it's necessary, that we should have some fear of the material nature, right? Daiva yesha gudamai. This material nature is working under Krishna's direction. But if you surrender to Krishna, then you can easily overcome it. So to the degree that we surrender, that's where the protection is. Sarva dharman prachaja, Krishna says, surrender to me, I'll protect you from the sinful reactions. So to surrender to Krishna in this age is to surrender to the holy name. And we should notice how, to the degree that we are actually chanting with attention, with affection, with an understanding, we become fearless, we become blissful. Devotee becomes blissful being properly situated at the lotus feet of the Lord. So, Prabhupada, I was going to read to you a little bit, very nice parts of a conversation Prabhupada had in London in 1971, where he's talking about this. It was a professor, and he was asking, so Swamiji, do you reject the idea of a fear of God? Prabhupada said, no, I do not reject. But the thing is that perfect knowledge is received from the authority which is beyond the material defects. The professor, no, what I mean is fear necessary for learning from an authoritative source? Again, makes the same point. No, but the authority must be perfect. Then otherwise the knowledge is not perfect. There's no question of fearing. It's actually out of love, out of affection, the reciprocation. The professor, well, that's what I think very often. What I think very often is that it is fear. It's actually fear that prevents people from accepting the authority. Prabhupada said, of course. He says, but that is not actual fear, that is obedience, respect. Respect, that's not fear. Just like my students. They are not fearful of me, just because I came from India. So what business they have got to be afraid of me? No, I'm giving them philosophy. They understand the philosophy. Therefore, they have got respect for me. The teacher should be offered the due respect. That is not fear. That is not out of fear. It is out of love. The professor says, no, I was saying that fear prevents love. Prabhupada, no. There's no prevention. There's no fear because he's talking about the disciples. Because they are quite at liberty to ask me a question and I'm answering. And they're asking and they're answering and I'm answering. I receive so many letters daily. So they are not afraid of me, but out of affection, they offer respect. The professor. May I ask one strange thing that I think is rather true of the present world? Yes. People are actually afraid to love. It's almost as though it's something rather sissy or, to get mixed up with sentimentality. Prabhupada said, actually, just like a child, he's afraid of the father. But there's affection. My father is displeased if I do this. Father has said, don't touch this, so I don't touch. My father has. So that fear and affection, both is there. It's not simply that he is afraid of the father, but the affection is there. So to become obedient to the authority, there's a tinge of fear also. But that is but that is based on affection. That is not actually fear. In this world, Prabhupada said, there's no actual love. But love is complicated because there's expectation of being frustrated in love, rebuffed. So therefore people are, Prabhupada said, and the professor says, terrified. They're terrified actually. Prabhupada says, yes. So everything in the material world is a perverted reflection. Therefore we sometimes love somebody and then we become frustrated. So therefore others see that this man has loved that girl, now he's frustrated, so why shall I love? That is due to frustration. But there is a perfectional stage. There is a perfectional stage, Prabhupada says here. Therefore we say it is a perverted reflection, just like our Radha and Krishna. That is the perfectional stage of love. Radharani is a young girl and Krishna is a young boy. There is love. So actually, originally this love between young boy and girl is there, but that is in the perfect stage of Radha Krishna. Here in the material world, the same thing is pervertedly reflected. Therefore, it is imperfect. So we have come to the perfectional stage. We should not be afraid and give it up. That is frustration. But love is there. There is a perfectional stage of love. We have to learn that. Prabhupada goes on to say, this Krishna conscious movement means to bring everything to the perfectional stage. The others, They're out of frustration. They want to stop all activity. That is voidism, to stop all this activity. Buddha philosophy is more or less based on this voidism, to make everything null and void. No more activities, no more love. We don't say that. We don't say that, we don't say that just because you cannot see properly, because our eyes are diseased. To cure the disease and then to see properly, that's the process. And the other one says, no, all right, pluck out the eye. The disease is in the eye. Take the eye away. That is not a very good proposition. We say that we make treatment to make the eyes to see properly. We remedy the problem. Our proposition is, Sarvo padir vinir muktam tatpada tvena nirmalam. We simply cleanse. The process is cleanse. The seeing process, we cleanse. We don't pluck out the eyes out of frustration. Don't make everything void. No, we don't say that. There is no void. It is simply frustration. There is variety, nice variety, spiritual variety. We are bringing people to that position. Dr. and the professor says, yes, I must say that's very interesting. So, Prabhupada's points here are very, very sanguine, interesting, because he's saying that even though we have a kind of fear, it's actually respect. Respect which can grow into love. Just to have fear of a situation without understanding that Krishna is behind it, that produces, that doesn't produce any love at all. We get confused. That's why terrorists, their whole program is to create fear and create confusion in people so that they don't know what to do, don't know what to trust. But as devotees, we see that any situation that we face, actually, there's Krishna behind it. And we should be understanding that if we respect that situation, we can actually increase our Whenever there's a decline in religion, whenever there's disturbance in the order, Krishna comes to protect devotees. Not so as devotees of Krishna, we should learn how to simultaneously take shelter of Krishna and understand that the material nature is always tempting us to give up our Krishna consciousness. So that takes strength, takes spiritual strength, takes good leadership. So I'm wondering where this fear came from that we have to close the temple. I'm wondering, and somebody could maybe explain to me why there's an order to close the temple when even in the state administration, the mundane state administration has said that only essential businesses should open. All non-essential businesses should close. And this is in the state of West Virginia. They have said that one of the essential businesses for the citizens is religious functions, religious churches, and religious services. Like, of course, there's certain protocol. And if we had a very, very tiny temple, I would be worried. But we have a big temple. If somebody does the calculation here, how many people could fit in this temple and be safe with a 6-foot social distancing? It would probably be 50 or 60 at least. So why we have to close the temple, I do not know. And somebody needs to tell me, what are we afraid of? That we have to even go against the state orders to leave churches open. Don't understand. So I'm going to stop here. Any questions or comments? Yes, Prabhu. Please. Yes. 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 Fear is protection for devotees? What can you explain what you mean by that? Yes. Yes. So that's what I was referring. So there is one way to look at it. Another way to look at it is, for example, the management, the authorities, and the devotees who are subordinates or the juniors who have to have that respect for the management, which is healthy, but most of the time we are afraid of the temple management or temple managers, or whether if I'm not obedient to the temple authority, my paycheck will be withheld, or my green card application will not be processed. So there is, so I'm going to continue in fear so that I can, in the future, I will have some security and stability if I am obedient to the management. And so what I'm saying is that on one hand we say, Krishna says, Ma Shuchaha, surrender to me and will take care of you and do not fear. So how do you, all these conflicting situations, how a devotee keeps a balanced or a decent or a healthy fear to a person? Prabhupada gave the example of the child who's afraid of displeasing the father. He's afraid of displeasing the father, but it's out of love. So the foundation has to be love. Prabhupada said that our movement, the foundational principles of our movement have to be love and trust. We trust that our devotees, our leaders, our managers, what do you want to say, that we trust that they're giving us something valuable. They're leading us towards the real thing. They're not cheating us. We trust them that they're giving us real Krishna consciousness. And if there's a trust, then love can develop. There can be no love without trust. So trust has to be the basis. In other words, somebody has to actually be representing the real message, the real life, and then if there's affection in that relationship, then love develops. To manage out of fear, that is doable. Many great, many powerful nations were run on the basis of fear, a fear of the punishment of the, dictator, so to speak. You can get things done out of fear, for sure, if that's your goal. If the goal is to get things done. If the goal is to lead souls back to the lotus feet of Krishna, then managing with fear has its drawbacks. Obviously, love is the greatest motivating factor, more so than fear. There's a lot more that can be accomplished when there is love and trust in. Just see how the movement spread under Srila Prabhupada. Was he giving anybody, paychecks or security? It was voluntarily. The devotees were inspired, and therefore they voluntarily were sacrificing to assist Prabhupada in his missionary activities. So that spirit, if it's lost, if the spirit that Prabhupada had, or the ability that Prabhupada had to love and inspire and challenge complacency in the conditioned souls, if that is lost, and we are just the International Society for Management Consciousness, we're just trying to manage things in a mundane way, or should I say a corporate way. What do we have? What are we trying to distribute? So it's very important for leaders, elder devotees, or whoever's trying to be involved in Krishna consciousness in any kind of responsible way, to imbibe that feeling of love for Krishna, and especially for Krishna's devotees. We may have, having love for Krishna is a very high program, but Krishna's loving Krishna is manifested by how we love and treat his devotees. Right? Krishna says, one who claims to be my devotee is not my devotee, but one who's a devotee of my devotee. So learning how to have proper loving relationships with devotees, whether we're managers or we're just, whatever position we have, it doesn't matter. The loving relationships between the devotees, that's what energizes the Krishna consciousness movement ultimately. When that's gone, or I'm not saying it's gone, when that's weakened, then what do we have? We have love and trust is then replaced with fear, intimidation, control. Prabhupada wasn't a control. Prabhupada controlled big. In the Leela Mrita, there's one statement that Prabhupada had it was the Nectar book by Sri Maharaj. It was describing Prabhupada's physical stature, very small, but he had these, 5'2" or something, but he had these big 6'4", 200-pound men that Prabhupada was able to move through the world. That he was, by his glance or by his order, by his pleasure or displeasure. Prabhupada was not that kind of, he wasn't a control, he wasn't interested in controlling, he was through force and intimidation. He was able to inspire people to serve Krishna by them feeling love, and getting something from Prabhupada. Prabhupada made sure that he was always giving, whether in the early days he was sitting behind his desk, he would meet anybody that came into his room. Then later on he realized the real gift he could give was through giving his classes and then writing Srimad Bhagavatam, writing the purports, Bhaktivedanta purports throughout his literatures. He was constantly giving. Prabhupada's example of a leader is he was constantly giving. Completely, up until his last breath, he was giving. And devotees felt that. They realized Prabhupada was giving this all for us. He wasn't giving in order to get a better position or to make himself secure in any way. He was risking his life and giving. That is leadership. It's called servant leadership. That's a principle that now there's whole courses on it. Whole books are written, not by devotees necessarily, but people who've studied. The most effective leaders are those who are servant leaders. They've actually understood that leadership is not being able to. Leadership is not just being able to command people, but it's able to serve them in such a way to share with them the heartfelt understanding of the mission or of the project or of the job, deeper understanding of the routine work that has to go on. If we just approach our service, if we're just approaching service, all the things that need to be done in the, whether it's the movement or whatever, everything's, it can be viewed either as a mundane activity or a transcendental activity. The simplest things: washing the pots of the kitchen, cleaning the deity, the paraphernalia, and giving lectures, going out and distributing books. Everything can be looked at mundanely, or if we understand that this is actual service to Guru and Krishna, then those who were trying to encourage to do it, from their hearing, if devotees aren't hearing regularly, not reading, not studying, then they're just going to be basically carrying out things mechanically or with material motivation. So the main function of spiritual leadership, and here, with Mahārāja Parīkṣit as an example, but is to give the citizens the truth, to give the devotees education. Our movement has to be a movement based on education. Without education, and even mundane, they have something called continuing education, adult continual education classes. Once you stop learning, you dry up, whether it's mundane learning or transcendental learning. So most people who want to continue learning, what do? They become teachers, because the more you teach, the more you learn. The person who benefits the most from teaching is the person teaching. Learning, and the subject matter of Krishna consciousness is ever fresh. So I don't know if I answered your question, but
In my view, from a spiritual perspective, we have an answer which is a safe answer. But you see, that in reality, when it comes to managing the subordinates, there is definitely the fear is instilled in a subtly or sometimes broadly in the name of discipline and all that, or you see, and also in Krishna's scheme of management for this universe, you know from the Shastra that the wind is blowing out of fear of the Lord.
okay.
So the wind is blowing everywhere all of the universe because it is afraid of Krishna. Otherwise the wind will, or the demigod controlling the wind can take a stand that yes, I won't move, I will stay in one place. So
No, we have to surrender to the authority, but the authority must be giving the real product. Just because somebody is the authority, they're not giving the real substance, the real thing, then it's going to be hard for them to manage out of love, for sure. Now, I agree. In a practical way, in America we say to manage with the carrot and the stick. You have to be able to inspire or to give the proper reward when the reward is deserved, but you have to also be willing to correct the situation. You cannot allow people to do what they want. This is not it's just not a free-for-all society. It's there's rules and regulations. This was being discussed actually yesterday. So how is it that, if people accept certain facility, even no matter what, if you get a driver's license, say, in town, you have to drive according. It's not like you have freedom just to drive whatever way you want. So similarly, if you live in an ashram, it's not that I can just live in the ashram any way I want. You've accepted this facility, a driver's license. You have to drive according to the rules and regulations of the state. Otherwise, you will be punished. But if you do drive according to the rules and regulations, say, you have a great time. You can drive all over America. Just have a great time driving your car. And, So the same way, if you live in an ashram, then there's certain rules and regulations. If you follow them, I mean, I lived in the ashram for so many years, for 20 years of my life. I was in the ashram and follow the rules and regulations. It's like it was a happy life, just serving Krishna all day. But then I had to manage ashrams too. That became quite a difficult service, So. But devotees have to understand, or everyone has to understand. If I accept, let's say if I have an apartment, it's a great facility. I live by myself, I have my own stove, but there's a responsibility there. I've accepted the apartment, I have to pay the rent, I have to pay the electric, I have to keep it clean, I can't destroy the property. I mean, and if I do, then there's a reaction. The landlord comes down, evicts me or fines me. This is normal life. There's always a perk and a penalty. Perk and penalties are always they're always there. So, the demigods or the wind might be blowing out of fear of Krishna, but what's Vayu's relationship with Krishna? He's also a devotee. He loves Krishna, but he also knows that if he does the wrong thing, so there's boundaries. Everyone has to know what the boundaries are. Anytime you accept the facility, just like Atato Brahma Jignasa, you've accepted this human form of life. Well, it's not a free for all according to Vedas. According to mundane philosophy, yes, I can just eat, drink, and be merry and enjoy, but not according to Vedas. Tato Brahma Jignasa. Now is the time. You've attained this human form of life. What a facility we're giving you. The Lord is the material nature, and the Lord is giving you this facility, human form of life. Now, what is the duty? Brahma Jignasa. Inquire. If you don't inquire, okay, there's a slap. But if you inquire nicely, you perfect your life, it's a springboard to even more facility. A spiritual body that doesn't grow old, doesn't get disease, doesn't die eternally in the spiritual world with Krishna. So, depending, how people can think that they can do whatever. This is an atheistic philosophy that's pervading society. That people think I can do whatever I want, or a rebellious society. That I can have facility and not be responsible for taking care of it. In the same way, you could say, if Krishna has given us some facility, whether it's this body, whether it's a family, whether it's an apartment, whether it's a house, whether it's a big farm, if we don't utilize it properly, isn't that sinful? If we don't take care of our family, isn't it sinful? If we don't take care of our property, isn't it sinful? If we don't take care of facility that Krishna has given us, isn't it sinful? So real management means to one time Prabhupada was challenged. Well, he challenged the devotees. If I say this is my cow, what does that mean? That means there's a bodily conception of life. You think that you're the owner of the cow, and isn't. Probably no. So it means that you're under the conception of I, me, mine. No. Probably, when I say it's my cow, that means I have to maintain that cow. So big managers are claiming, this is my project, this is my prop, this is my land, this is my this. Okay, if it's my, these buildings are under your corporation name, these properties under, how have you been maintaining it? That's the challenge. Are you properly utilizing it in Krishna service, or is it just going down the tubes? So these are common sense things that have to be talked about. I'm not sure I'm even answering your question, but they both go together, you know.
There is not definite way you can say this or that. We just have to live by our consciousness and our conscience. Both. Our conscience has to be, properly placed, and that unifies our, expand our consciousness. So that's the way I have seen it, and that's the way, I feel I should cultivate my own spiritual life. So this is my personal take on this.
But obviously, we have our own spiritual life we should always take care of. But if we're in a position where others are coming into our circle, then how to take care of our spiritual life, we have to try our best to impart a Krishna conscious, a Krishna conscious atmosphere for that person to improve, because that's our duty for every living being. So yeah, and then of course detachment. We have to. Some people, no matter what you do for them, no matter how much you preach, no matter what example you set, they're just gonna. They're not going to take you as anybody but just another atom in the room. and you have to be detached, unless we have a position that we have to enforce some regulations or enforce something in order to be responsible to our own service. Because ultimately we're not doing anything on our own. We're representing the authority, representing Prabhupada, representing Krishna. Then we can be detached. We're doing this, Prabhu. I'm not. I remember one time I had to write a letter to a devotee who was causing a big disturbance. And I said, "Dear Prabhu, I like you so much as a devotee. I think we've always been, had good relationships. But now I'm the temple president. And according to the GBC regulations, anybody who comes here and starts speaking against Prabhupada's Siddhanta, I have to tell you that this is the rule, and I'm just, because of my service, I'm gonna, so it was like, even though he was my friend and we grew up together in Krishna consciousness, I had to tell him that I'm now in a situation where I have to represent what Prabhupada's movement is about, and I'm going to have to tell you this. Yeah, so it's difficult because nobody likes to have people that don't like them. Everyone wants to be liked. That's why we're in the material world. We're trying to be the friend of everybody. But so still, there's a way. It's a long talk, but thank you for your interest in it. Srimad Bhagavatam Granth Raj ki, Srila Prabhupada ki.